Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you part 12 of Stitch Story Crochet Along. Part 12 is a honeycomb pattern and this square has been designed by Heather Gibbs from Keep Calm and Crochet On UK. For Stitch Story I'm using River Washed yarn. I've been using the same yarn for all my squares, and what's especially important for this week's square is that you go up a considerable amount of hook sizes. I've worked this on a 5mm hook, but you might even have to go up to a 5.5, and that's got to do with all the slip stitches that we work on. It really pulls in your fabric, but still you can see how stretchy my fabric now is by going up those hook sizes. So I'm going to show you how to work this pattern repeat. There's 4 rows. I'll show you how to do them, and then you can keep on repeating that until your square is large enough. Row 1, I've gone up a considerable hook size. I'm using a 5mm H hook, but you might even need a 5.5 I hook for this square. The reason is that we're going to work a lot of slip stitches, and slip stitches tend to pull your work tighter, and just to make sure that you get to the right gauge you might have to go up a few hook sizes for this square. With a slip knot on my hook, I'm going to start by chaining 26. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 26 chain stitches, and I've actually just taken a few stitch markers. I'm going to be using stitch markers continuously through this square to help me keep track of the changing stitches. As I go along, I'll show you how I use those stitch markers. I'm going to start in the second chain from the hook and then work a slip stitch in that second stitch as well as the next 4 stitches. So we're going to work 5 slip stitches. So that's the first stitch from the hook, the second stitch from the hook. Go in there and work a slip stitch. 1, you're going to work 5, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this here is slip stitch number 5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this 5th stitch. The reason is that when I come back I need to find this stitch, and it's just easier if you mark this stitch that you can actually find it. So that is slip stitch number 5. In the next 5 stitches we're going to work a half double. So here this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, I'm going to mark this 5th half double. Next row, or next stitches, again 5 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slip stitches. Again, mark slip stitch number 5 here. You can see how I'm marking stitches. That's really to help me in the next round specifically. Now again, 5 half doubles and 5 slip stitches we're going to do until the end. So again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half doubles. I'm going to put a stitch marker in there. And then finish with 5 slip stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slip stitches. There we go. And that completes, oh, I actually didn't need that stitch marker. That completes row 1. And then in row 2, these stitch marker positions are going to help us to not accidentally work too many slip stitches or half doubles. Row 2, I'm going to do a chain 1 to turn. This is not a stitch, this is just to turn. And what we're going to do now is we can only be working in the back loops of your stitches. So if you look here, this is the stitch, so that means only in the back loops. So if you look at the stitch there, if I can just find it, oh come on, that loop, so only in the back loops we're going to be working. And we're going to start by working 5 half doubles. And the first, and you might just really have to just rotate your work forward, and this is also where these stitch markers help you, because you've put them in the top of the stitch, so you can see exactly where what the front of the stitches is. It's that, and not this row, but that row. So really be sure to rotate your work correctly. So this is the first stitch, so I'm just going to work a half double in that, in the back loop of that stitch. I need to work 5, so that's 1, 2, 3, and this is 4, and here comes 5. And you can see now where the stitch marker comes in. The stitch marker is a changing point. The fact that I have the stitch marker here tells me that this was the last half double. So I've worked 5 half doubles, and the moment you get to a stitch marker you need to switch to slip stitches, or if you've done slip stitches, change to half doubles depending on where in the pattern you are. But these stitch markers help you to identify those change points. What I'm going to do is in this stitch, so this was again stitch number 5, I'm going to put a stitch marker again to help me in the next round identify that this turning point, this changing point from one stitch pattern to the next pattern. And again I'm pushing it through the top of the stitch so that I can easily see, okay, where are my stitches, where are the loops, and hence also where is the back loop. We just worked 5 half doubles. Now we're going to work 5 slip stitches. Sorry, my yarn is just tied up a bit. There we go. Now we're going to work 5 slip stitches, and again in the back loops. So this is the first stitch with the stitch marker in it. So see how I'm grabbing the back. This is the stitch, how I'm grabbing the back loop of that stitch. And now I can remove this stitch marker, but hold on to it, you'll need it in a moment. So that's 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5 slip stitches. Next stitch, it contains a stitch marker, so that's a checkpoint. I need to stop and work half doubles from there. I've now done 5 slip stitches. Again, I'm going to hook up the stitch marker in that 5th slip stitch. Stitch marker is a reminder to me I need to change over to half doubles. So in the back loop of this stitch, see there, in the back loop work 1 half double. Now I can remove the stitch marker, and you've got everything oriented correctly, so now you won't make a mistake of not working in the back loop, because that's actually very easy to go wrong here, that you don't work in the back loop but that you accidentally work in the front loop. So keep rotating your work that you really work in the right loops. So that's the next loop I need. Look here, those are my stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. I've skipped one somewhere. So that is to help you with the stitch marker, that you don't accidentally skip one. You see I've skipped a loop there. So you should always have 5 stitches. And if you get to the stitch marker and you've only worked 4, then you know I've accidentally skipped one. And these slip stitches are easy to miss. So that's 3. This is 4. And then this here is number 5. You can see the next stitch contains a stitch marker, and therefore I should start working half slip stitches in that again. I'm going to mark half double number 5 here, again for when I come back that I can identify it. So now I'm going to work 5 slip stitches in the back loop. That's stitch number 1. I'm going to work a slip stitch and remove the stitch marker, but just hold on to it. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this here is number 5. Place your stitch marker back in this 5th slip stitch, because the next stitch contains a stitch marker, which means I now need to change to half doubles. 1, I'm going to remove stitch marker. It's 1, and then the back loops. Make sure you grab only the back loop, so rotate your work forward that you can see that loop. This is 2, 3, there we go, 4, and the last one here is just a little tricky, so but be sure to get 5 half doubles. There we go. And that was row 2, and now we're going to be repeating the same idea, but we're now going to stack half doubles and slip stitches on slip stitches in row 3. Row 3, chain 1, turn, and now we're going to start again with half doubles. We're going to work a half double on the half doubles and slip stitches on the slip stitches. And again, my stitch markers are there to help me see when I need to change from half doubles to slip stitches. In the first stitch here, work a half double in the back loop, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5. So 5 half doubles. I'm going to put my stitch marker in that 5th stitch through the entire stitch so that I exactly know where it is. On the next 5 stitches, work a slip stitch through the back loop. So that's 1. Now I can remove the stitch marker, but just again hold on to it. That's 1. Be sure to rotate your work forward, that you really work through the back loops, because these are your stitches and not that. See how I'm rotating my work. So that's 1, and this is also one to help you see where your line is. So that's 1, 2, 2, 3, 4 and 5 slip stitches. Next stitch contains a stitch marker, so that's my stopping point, and I need to have worked 5 stitch marker back in this slip stitch that I just worked. Now I'm changing to half doubles again. Through the back loop of that first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. There you go, 5 half doubles. Put a stitch marker in. The next stitches 5 slip stitches. 1. I'm going to remove the stitch markers. 1. Especially with these slip stitches, be sure to rotate your work forward so you can really see the back loop. That's 2, 2, and this here is 3. No, see, now I'm in the front loop. You see, really to rotate this, and this stitch marker helps you to see where the line is. So that's the stitch, that's the loop, that's the loop, and this is the loop I'm going for. And then that means this loop, and that means this loop here. So now I should have 5 half doubles. Let me just double check and count. So that was, sorry, it's 5 slip stitches. That was my last half double. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, I've worked 5 slip stitches. I'm just gonna hook up the stitch marker. I feel that for this honeycomb pattern, stitch markers are a necessity, because even with a lot of experience, if you've done crochet for many years, you can just lose track of where are you, and then that messes up your entire stitch pattern. So I feel stitch markers are essential for this pattern, because I've made mistakes here already. Just on this little bit I've already made 2 mistakes, so, and these stitch markers just help you to catch them. And that's 2, 3, 4, and here's the last one. Oh, come on, 5 half doubles. There you go. You can see the pattern is starting to form. Row 4. What we're going to do in row 4 is the same idea as we've done in rows 2 and 3, but where we started with a half double in rows 2 and 3, we're now going to start with a slip stitch. So, but it's the same idea. It's the same idea. I'm going to chain 1. That's again just to turn, then turn your work. And then in the back loops here of these half doubles, going to work a slip stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slip stitches. I'm going to mark slip stitch number 5 again, and this I'm going to keep on doing, and this is a bit of discipline, but it's really worth it. 5 half doubles, 5 slip stitches in the half doubles. Next stitch is contains a stitch marker, so that's a turning point again. Now I need to work 5 half doubles in these 5 slip stitches in the back loop. So in that first one there, that stitch, there you go, just be sure you get into that stitch, into that back loop. So you see how through the back loop there. It's one. I'm just going to remove the stitch marker. It's 1, and then this here is loop number 2, and then 3, there we go, 3, 4, and number 5. You can see there, that's number 5. You can see that's in the back loop because this is indeed aligned with the next stitch. Half double number 5. Going to mark that stitch again for when I come back in the next row. I know when I need to change over from one stitch to the other, from slip stitches to half doubles. Next stitch is going to work as slip stitch again. Here, that's 1. Just going to take this out. Just 1, 2, 3, 4, and here this is number 5. There you go, 5 slip stitches. Gonna mark slip stitch number 5 here. On the next 5 stitches, work a half double through the back loop, and these are slip stitches that you're working in, so they are just a little tighter. That's 1. Take this out. 1. Just turn your work forward. They can really get into those back loops. It's 2. And this is 3. And 4, and there's the last one here. It's 5 half doubles. Again, marking this stitch. Now, see, now I've only got the one loop. I want to get both loops, so that I know exactly where the stitch is, so that I also know which loop is the back loop when I come back for row 5. And now on the last 5 stitches, work a half, these are half doubles, work slip stitches in the back loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one, just rotating it because that's loop number 5. There we go. 5 half doubles. That completes row 4. I just need to do row 5, and then you've got the full pattern repeat. Row 5, chain 1, again just to turn, then turn your work. And row 5 is the same as row 6. We're going to start, row 5 is the same as row 4. We're going to start with slip stitches. So rotating my work forward to see exactly where the back loops are. You see, so this first stitch marker can help you to just trace that back to see where exactly your back loops are, so that you don't miss them. So there's my first back loop. 1, 1, oh, this one is numbered, there we go, numbered 2, this is 3, 4, and here's the last one, 5. See if I've done all of those in the right loops. Yes, I have. When in doubt, just do them again, eh? There we go. 5 slip stitches. I'm just going to hook my stitch marker in the 5th one. On the next 5 stitches, work a half double in the back loop. So that's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again, yes, place the stitch marker. I was just thinking, what am I missing? What am I missing? There we go. Place the stitch marker. In the next 5 stitches, place slip stitch through the back loop. So that's 1. So 1. It's going to rotate them forward. I can really see those loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's the last one, 5. Especially with these slip stitches, you can easily get into the wrong loop because you think it's the back loop, but it's actually not, because you haven't rotated your work. Then on the next 5 stitches, again a half double in the back loop. So that's 1, just rotate your work forward, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Place a stitch marker. So I really do want to urge you for this self-discipline of these stitch markers. I'm still using them on this pattern, and even though I've got quite a few years of crochet behind me, I still miss these points. So I really do believe in the power of stitch markers for this pattern. And then that is 1, 1, and 2, 3, 4, and the last one here, 5. There we go. That is the last pattern row. Now look at our work from the front. So this is the front of your work. Row 5 finishes from the back, so just turn your work over. This is the front, and now you can start to see this honeycomb pattern here. That is the next comb, and this is the next comb. So rows 2, 3, 4, and 5, those 4 rows, you're going to repeat now until you've done 60 rows in total. Then your square will be high enough. And the pattern repeat is you start with a half double twice, and then you start with a slip stitch twice, and you keep on repeating that until you've done 60 rows. So repeat rows 2, 3, 4, and 5 until you have 20 rows. And this is the square when you're all done. You still need to work the edge around, so 25 stitches and 3 single crochets in the corner. So this is the same border that you've done on all your squares. This is what your square looks like from the front. From the back, you'll notice that the pattern looks bit different, but like you can see, I've still got my yarn tails to work away. But make sure that you've got all the front parts to the front, because sometimes when you miss a row, you'll suddenly start seeing this pattern being mixed with this pattern, and then you know, okay, I've somewhere forgotten a row. Then that happens. But this is what you're going for with the small square. The large square is very similar to the small square. It's the same pattern, but just more repeats in both the width as the height direction. So I'm not going to show you how to make that because it's exactly the same. And when you've done both your small and your large squares, you've finished all the squares, and next week we can start joining them.